Kia ora, folks. Kia ora, folks. Thanks for coming to the New Zealand Institute of Buildings update on essentially our refreshing our strategy, our branding, looking at our naming. It's wonderful to have you here. Ko Pamela Bell, toka ingoa. I'm Pamela Bell. I'm the Chief Everything or CEO Officer here at the New Zealand Institute of Building. And I'm very, very grateful to have alongside us a couple of our board members. We have our board chair, John Hemme, our board deputy chair, Kirsten Magnuson, and behind the Institute of Building symbol, we have Sophie Preble, our marketing and comms lead. Right, well, we are a little interactive chat here with you today. We've got 4 polls. It should be really simple. They pop up on your screen. It's a simple yes, no answer. It's really just to make sure that we've got the room moving along with us as we take you through about 4 or 5, key points. We're really happy to take questions or comments through the chat at any time. Sophie's going to help administer with that. And of course, we will pause at the end to have a more full conversation. Some of you will have something to add in, and we are all ears. This is all part of our member consultation to make sure that the membership is on the same journey as your governance and operations teams. Cool, so let's kick into it. Now, hopefully, some of you will have seen that the Institute turned 40 last year. You will know that we have a rich 40-year history, and there have been a huge number of volunteers working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. Some faces you may recognise. We were lucky with the 40-year book, which Sophie Preble was editing and pulling together on behalf of the Institute, that she got to meet and talk to a lot of these people, including Shirley, who's there on the right-hand side, who is now well into her 90s. So it's been a fabulous journey, and it's great to be able to carry on some of these memories. What you may or may not know is that we started 40 years ago as an offshoot of the Australian Institute of Building. And over time, we have grown and expanded to include a broader range of roles than those that the Australian Institute represents today. And we do still extend our hands and arms across the Tasman and do activities with them, such as sharing information around our operations and also turning up at each other's awards to celebrate excellence. So one of the things around the book I should let you know, and we certainly don't expect you to read that fine detail, is if you haven't received one, please put in the chat your postal address and we'll make sure you get one. All members should have one. If you need a second copy for your workplace, please just let us know. Now, this is a really interesting slide because we start to see the first logo, which was created in 1990. And you can see there, it's the NZIOB initials, the acronym. And as we get further into the 90s, you can see that the more colourful version turned up, which we will talk about a little bit later on. Also just want to acknowledge that we had quite a lot of help pulling together this information from the archives, from student help as well. So it's great to have all this information in one place. The last 20 years or so are on this part of the timeline. And one of the interesting things here, we can see the Silver Jubilee branding, which has got the Institute's logo inside in grayscale. Cool. So we are really proud of this 40-year history. We're feeling obviously young and nubile because 40 is the new 30. And we're thinking about how we move forward. We're thinking, how can we honour the people, the past, as we move forward? So we want to honour our past and reflect our roots as we move forward. So we're thinking about moving forward and the next 40 years of the Institute. And we want to retain the name in some shape or form, New Zealand Institute of Building. This, of course, is also our legal name, the Incorporated Society name, and it is what we have been using for some time. So we're interested in your point of view. Do you think we should keep the New Zealand Institute of Building name in some form as we move forward? If you wouldn't mind just clicking yes or no, it's a little easy binary one, and then we can just share the results, see who else is on that journey, and move into the next part of the poll. So where are we at? Great. So we've got 7 folks agreeing, which is fantastic. As we move forward, we are very interested in what others are doing. And what I might do is I will just chat through this, but I'm really interested in John, Kirsten, Sophie, if you've got anything else you want to add, and then I'll ask you to pop in with the process. Some of you will be members of these other membership bodies. So the first one I've got here is Engineering NZ. It wasn't all that long ago that they were IPENZ, the Institute of Professional Engineers New Zealand. I had to really think about that clearly. I feel like this was maybe over 10 years ago that they did this, and it was at a time when there were other associations starting to think about being something NZ. I was at Prefab NZ at the time. They became Engineering NZ, and then we started to get a whole spate of Metals NZ. There'll be others. I should probably have written them down, but we started to do that kind of mashup word. So the doing word and then NZ. So Engineering NZ did this wonderful rebrand, got a very close association with this bright blue, and moved into a logo that spoke about their transformation. This was evocative of a butterfly, and it was about them transforming in the way that they did business with their members. At a slightly more recent time, in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, the diversity agenda was established, and that was Engineering NZ and the Institute of Architects. So they created a body which is about diversity in all its shape and forms, and their logo and branding is, again, very clean, lots of white space, and a strong key colour, which is the crimson. In the last handful of years, we've watched what was called the Association of Consulting Engineers New Zealand change its name to be ACE NZ. So essentially an acronym that has the sound of a word. So they also changed their name to be more broad. So they're now the Association for Consulting and Engineering, Aotearoa. So it's a broader spectrum of people that they are looking to represent. At the same time, they did this lovely clean website and the bright purple and a very inclusive look and feel to how they get their imagery across. Over in the construction sector, the master builders who are looking after commercial organisations have done a little bit more of a smooth up rather than a full transformation. They've always had this blue and yellow logo, but what you might not realise is they've done quite a bit of work just to do little tweaks on that, and again kept with the blue colours. And similarly, over in the residential construction organisation sector at Certified, they did a refresh again, probably a handful of years ago, and they moved with that hexagon shape and the more orangey red colour. And again, a very clean layout, lots of white space. What's interesting, I think, for us, because we're interested to keep our name, New Zealand Institute of Building, while still being able to refresh in some way, shape or form, is looking at Apopo. This is the Infrastructure Asset Management Professionals, clearly a little bit of a mouthful. So what they've done is they've gone through a consultation journey with their members and decided that they are all about their purpose, which is about tomorrow, about future-proofing. And so the Māori name, Apopo for tomorrow, is put there on top alongside the Infrastructure Asset Management Professionals and their legal name. And they've gone with a turquoise colour. So it's really interesting to see how there's different colours that represent different institutes. Sorry, I'll just sit on Apopo for a minute. What I wanted to say here is, as we're looking to other the competition, I guess, if you like, the other industry associations and how they are incorporating Te Reo Māori, we're noticing that there are several different ways to do it. So the infrastructure asset management professionals have chosen to create a name that represents who they are and their purpose and what they stand for. Other folks, like the New Zealand Institute of Architects, are choosing to be gifted a name that has some meaning behind it, like Te Kahue Whaihanga, which is what they've landed on. And then others like NAWIC, the National Association of Women in Construction, have chosen a transliteration, a literal translation of their Te Reo Māori name. As a result, it's quite long and I can't rattle it off, sorry, but gives an example of the different ways people are investigating their journey of biculturalism. Cool. So our logo was created in 1997. Perhaps it's time for a change. Now, Sophie's kindly found a few things that happened in 1997 just to remind us of what was going on. I can certainly remember what I was up to. But, you know, this is back when we talk about DVDs. The Titanic was our favourite movie. Jim Bolger was in Parliament. Princess Diana dies. I'm sure we can remember exactly where we were when we all heard that news. I know I was in a very uninsulated Wanaka batch when I heard that. And Bill Clinton was back in as president over in the States. So we're interested today in 2024 to think about what we could look like for the next 40 years. What might we look like in 2064? One thing we do know is we want to stay relevant within our construction industry, and we also want to be future-proof. We want to be future ready for our future members. So we're interested to see, as you're listening, if you're still with us here on this conversation, which is about staying relevant, yet able to receive and be ready for future members. If you could please vote with your poll there, that's yes or no, and then we'll watch the results pop up. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about the process to date, and that's where I'll call on John and Kirsten to support in that. So where did we get to with that, Sophie? I noticed a couple of chat comments came up. Is there anything we need to have a look at?
That's all good. There was just someone asking for an extra book.
Oh, great. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks, folks. I can see that we're all still on the same page. So let's just quickly recap the journey so far, because I realise that a lot of stuff happens at the Institute that's behind the scenes that you don't get to see. So this is our chance to let you know what we've been doing for the last 18 months. And John, I might ask you to help with the first slide and or the first two slides, and Kirsten with the next two. Over to you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. I joined the NZIOB board in late 2021, and earlier that year there'd been a strategy session. So every few years the NZIOB runs a strategy session, and consistent themes were in that strategic direction. It was about growing our membership. It was about increasing our diversity of our membership, and providing training and development and support for our membership. So when I joined the board, we had a look at the action plan for that strategic refresh and wanted to just tweak it up a little bit. It coincided with us turning 40, which was a really good time to look back, take stock of where we are as we then looked forward and how we wanted to shape ourselves for the next 40 years. So the board has been really working on that strategic direction and trying to hone it and really get it as modern and as refreshed as we can. And part of that is looking at our image, the logo and the name of the organisation. So the board is really behind and supportive of making a refresh and making a change as we get into this next 40 years. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Do you want to do this one as well? And then I'll give the next two to Kirsten. Or actually,
I'll do that one because I don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
John.
yeah. Thanks, Kirsten.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, it must be, time escapes me actually, but sort of middle of last year, we met with a really renowned agency called Like Minds, who are specialists in the naming space. And the naming team from the home team and the committee came into the agency. We spent time looking at our purpose, looking at our values, and then coming up with a brainstorming of names, putting them all on a whiteboard, categorizing them into areas, connections for them. And nothing came out of that we were really sold on. So we went to the next step, which was to use a special copywriting naming agency called The Namery. And through that, Sarah was able to give us some, I guess, a steer in the next of where we wanted to go. And so we realized that what we needed was something that would be short, 1 to 2 words, and we knew that it would need to encompass what the Institute of Building is all about. So yeah, and then later in that year we did the 40 years birthday celebrations, and Sophie did the Amazing 40 Years book. So the lessons from that were that we needed to hold on to our past, retain everything that is about the Institute that has got us to where we are today. So we know with the naming it's more around adding rather than taking away from what we already had, which leads me into the end of 2023. There's the time, and I could have just looked there. So we considered 3 types of names. We've obviously got an acronym with the NZIOB at the moment. We also considered what a blend might look like. So, Namery is a great example of a blend. One of our sponsors is called Brandistry. That's another example. But ultimately, we decided that we wanted to really honour the story that is the Institute of Building. And so in Te Reo Māori, that is called a pūrākau. And what we like about that is that because it can hold more than one meaning, it gives it much greater depth. So we haven't landed on anything here, but this could be in Māori or in English. And so considering it could be in Māori, the board's been embarking on a cultural competency journey, as has the home team. The home team's also been working with MB around naming conventions and processes, and earlier this year held a internal hui with the regional committee members, where everyone was updated on this refresh, progress and our next steps.
Awesome, thanks Kirsten. So where we're at now is we've been on this journey for 18 months essentially. So we've formed this naming group. We've been doing our interface with consultants. We've done the research around the 40 Years book and understanding a lot more around the historical depth and richness of the Institute. We've landed on the idea of our story, the narrative or pūrākau, and we're wanting to be as culturally sensitive and inclusive as possible. So we're going through a number of processes with different groups and getting advice around how this works. And of course, today we're here with you talking about the journey and happy to receive feedback and to talk with you about it. So the part that we're interested to connect with you about now, this is the 3rd of 4 polls, is reflecting on how our name and our brand and everything you can see on the outside talks to our story, our purpose, our narrative, or our pūrākau. So we're interested in if you think our name should reflect our story. If you could please vote yes or no, and then we'll look to see the mood of the room and then move into the last section, which is about more strategic content. Where did we get to there, Sophie?
Just waiting for one more to come in, but I'll end it now.
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, cool. So that's great to see that you're all still with us on this idea of the narrative, the story, the pūrākau. In terms of moving forward into our refresh side of the journey, in terms of the strategic refresh, And many of you will be familiar with what we put out in March last year, which was around our strategy refresh, and the video that had the voices of, we had Mark Fahey, we had Mana Ashford, and we had Adam Baxter speaking about the past, the present, and the future. And that is a concept that we followed through with the 40-year book. We have a one-page strategy snapshot, which is just to let you know where the direction that we are delivering into at an operational and governance level. And we also have a shot here that came from our internal hui after the build-up inaugural 2-yearly event that we ran in March in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. We had an internal hui where all our national board members and all our incredibly generous regional committee members from the north, centre and the south of New Zealand got together in person, and we had a really good way of connecting around the direction of the Institute of Building, and we created information obviously around the journey to date. So this conversation now with the membership is in line with what we started there. So what we have landed on is these 3 terms around connecting, belonging and giving back, or generosity, are what we've heard from the member meetups in October, November 2022. Through the 40-year book, we have really started to understand the role that the Institute has in being a place where people can connect and belong, and a focus on growth. So we're hearing that the Institute is a place where people grow themselves in their careers. It's actually where roles themselves become established. If you look over the last 40 years, the roles that we represent have been becoming firmed up, I guess, in the industry. The construction manager, site manager, project manager type roles. We're constantly working on redefining and clarifying those roles. So we're working on a scope of services with the Project Management Institute at the moment around consultant, client side project managers. We're also growing in terms of membership numbers. We've got a big focus from a strategic governance point of view around marketing to next generation members, students, cadets, and apprentices. And of course, we're growing our resilience. We are absolutely on board with being around for another 40 years and making sure we're relevant and future-proofed. And that is in our delivery to members as well as our financial resilience. So we're seeing a theme around growth, and we're understanding and hearing and looking at the last 40 years and thinking about the next 40 and seeing that growth is a recurring theme and potentially somewhere where we can lodge our narrative or our pūrākau as we go forward. So could you please comment if you're following this, if you can see how the Institute is positioned for growth? Again, it's the last of the 4 polls. It's a yes, no, and then we'll just go into the last section, which is around membership, and then into the questions in the chat. Thanks, folks. And I understand Mana's here too. Hey, Mana. Sorry, I didn't have you on my screen, so I'm just going to need to try and change that. Mana, it would be awesome. Oh, we've got our, oh, thanks, Sophie, for the poll. Mana, I might see if you can help me with a couple of the next slides. We're now talking about membership. So members are at the heart of everything that we do here at the Institute, whether it's connecting members in terms of their own stakeholder engagement and contacts, whether it's the skills and the technical information that we're passing over, or any other way that we're connecting and informing people. So here's some ideas of events. Mana, I reckon you were probably at most of these. Mana, do you want to tell us a little bit? I'm pretty sure I remember being at this one with you. These are a whole range of events. That's the Bowls one in Auckland. Have you got sound? It looks like you're, okay, cool. just while you're connecting, just so folks know, we've got a full range of events that we run each year. The two largest ones, obviously the awards and the conference. This was the Build Up conference that we ran in March. It's our inaugural 2-yearly conference on people, performance and productivity. And then there's a full range of site visits, back to work bowls, and a whole range of other student focused and other events.
Sorry.
Mana, all good.
Okay. No, awesome. Yeah, so I suppose for us, it's pretty key to keep our members engaged with events up in Auckland. We've got another one coming up tomorrow with Layla Love, which is the Build to Rent program which they got going on out there. So that's another sellout. We've got a waiting list of around 12. So yeah, the engagement from our members up north has been amazing. And I think it's off the back of just making them relevant for our members and really informative, but also around, I suppose, what are they doing different on sites? Not only them, but also their clients, how are they thinking differently and how they're moving with the market, and how they, from a solution perspective as well, sharing those insights with our members, which is being proved really, really awesome for our guys. So that's why we get good response.
Oh, thanks, Mana. And I know Mana's been an invaluable board member and member of the naming group recently, so that's fantastic. We really appreciate your input. And some of you might not know, but we run something between 80 and 100 events every year when you count all the online events as well as all the in-person events. So events are very much the language we speak to connect people and to impart information and to share and to help people find the others in their industry. So our people are often very career focused, very mobile, and they're often looking for new opportunities. So we're able to provide that platform to help make some of those conversations happen, which is great. So we're really interested in how others perceive the association, the Institute. We're really interested in what we can learn from other member-based associations or institutes. We're really keen to see our strategic refresh reflected in the way people see us and our brand. We're seeing themes around membership growth, around basically how we grow roles, how we grow in the industry, how we grow our resilience. And we are pretty much, just at the point that you've seen really in terms of keeping the name, wanting to be future-proofed and positioned for growth, landing on the idea of the narrative, the pūrākau, the story of the Institute, and then looking at where those themes of growth come out through the Institute. So that's essentially where we've landed to date. I just wonder, John, Kirsten, Mana, Sophie, is there anything else you would add into that? I've probably missed something.
One of the things that's part of that, Pam, is the logo itself, which you can see on the screen there, which is 20 years old. So we're keen to have a look at something that's a bit more modern to replace that with. But interested if people have views on that as well.
You're absolutely right. We do think that logo is time for a change. We do think 1997 was a little bit longer, but a while ago.
Yeah.
And we are keen that as we move forward, it reflects who we want to be into the future as well as who we are right now. So I guess we'd be really keen to take any comments, any chat. If anyone has a question or wants to raise a hand, of course we'll take anything by email as well. But while we're here in this online room together, really happy to hear anyone's voices or perspectives. Mana, I wonder if there's anything else you would want to add around the concept of a narrative, a story, or a pūrākau in terms of the Te Ao Māori space and how this could be reflected in the Institute going forward. And I know you've been fantastic in your previous roles at MB in the construction sector accord and getting us to start having some of those conversations with the people that know a lot more about this than we do. But yeah, just wondered if you had anything else to add in there.
Yeah, just probably just one thing from me, just in regards to the journey that we've been on, and I know we spoke about it before. You know, this isn't something that we've just come up with over a short period of time. We've taken a real considered approach in regards how we navigate our way through this. Is it the right thing to do? Are our members ready for this change? And how would we be perceived by our members, I guess, as some of the key kōrero. But as we've kind of gone through the journey and we've had multiple conversations across multiple levels from membership, regional, national, third party, become apparent that, you know, the more that we speak about it, the more that it feels right and the time is right for us to kind of go down this track. So from that perspective, it's been really wholesome, you know, being a Māori in this space as well. You know, I was kind of thinking, are we doing it just for the sake of doing it? And are we going to potentially give it the mana that it deserves in regards to the change? And we've kind of kept that really forefront thinking when it comes to that, to be authentic in regards to our thinking around the journey. So just from that perspective, I think we've kind of done really well. We've learned as a group as well in regards to how to navigate this space. We haven't rushed out and done it straight away. We've been very mindful, as I mentioned before. So yeah, I think the pūrākau piece is definitely the way that we should be thinking, because even though whatever the name we decide, that story can be reflected in different words and different ways and different emotions, as long as it kind of carries the same mana of the reason why we've done it. So from that perspective, I'm really excited, I guess, pretty proud to be part of the group that's been given this whittle, this challenge to take us on this journey, because it's going to be here hopefully for the next 40 years.
Yeah. What do you
And
mean?
there's just a
hopefully?
question in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that, or would you like me to read it?
Sorry, I'm not reading. Yeah, if you could read it.
We did talk about that briefly, but the message might not have gotten through. So the intention is to keep, well, the survey questions are asking the question, should we keep the name? And everyone so far unanimously has said, yes, we want to keep the name. But what we're looking at is a secondary name, the Pōrākau, which is part of our marketing refresh and our branding and everything else. So the answer to the question is we would end up with both. The New Zealand Institute of Building as the official name, and then the other name is what we can refer to ourselves as in short, or more easily.
Cool.
And
yeah.
and the other thing about the three colours representing the three provinces, rugby provinces, that are the three main branches of the Institute: Auckland, Wellington, or Central, and Canterbury. So yeah, that's where those three colours fit in.
I wonder if it would help if I went back to the Apopo example. I'm not sure if you saw that, Gina. Let me just hop back to that.
Interesting thing about Apopo, they were IPWEA, which is an Australasian Public Works Engineering Association, and they carved themselves off to become this new organisation. So they actually changed their name quite a bit in the process. Infrastructure Asset Management Professionals.
Yes, actually, when you look at their history, they have changed their name something like a handful of times through different, yeah. You're right. So I guess we're really interested in what they're doing there, because they maintain the infrastructure asset management professionals identity, yet that's too much to say in one sentence, you know, to refer to. So they have Apopo, which signals that they're about tomorrow, about growth, about establishing obviously the environment, the built environment, the asset infrastructure, and looking after it for future generations. So there's a nice intergenerational and future aspect to the word Apopo. And I think also they've got a really great example of a similar journey, which we're modelling in terms of how they are talking with their committees and their members. And we're also in touch with them about their journey. Theirs was much more condensed. The whole thing was only 6 months. We're obviously at 18 months and counting, so it's a slightly different, longer, more involved process. But I think it's really interesting. And for those that don't know, there is a thread across Engineering NZ, ACNZ, Diversity Accord, and Apopo, and that they've all used the same branding agency. So that's, even though the outcome's slightly different. Yeah.
There's another question that's one's come through the Q&A function from Russell asking, have you done much work on the target demographic over the next 40 years?
Over the next 40 years?
As in, I'm guessing that means the changing demographic, so the younger group?
Right, in terms of the next gen. Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just distracted in the chat.
If anyone would like to ask a question in person as well, you just need to raise your hand and then we can allow you to talk.
Sounds good. So in terms of the next generation, the member meetups were held at the end of 22, and we had really great engagement from our younger members at those member meetups. They were held in person, and there was one online to make them accessible to people from around the country and the regions. And that's when we heard that people wanted to belong, to connect, and with their generosity give back to the Institute. So those were the 3 core reasons for engagement. The other aspects around the next gen, I guess we are in touch with them actually on a monthly level through our young professionals advisors. We had a young professional advisor inside the naming subgroup, certainly through the Live Minds workshopping, etc. And of course, we have our young professionals chair on the board representing the voice of our younger professionals. In terms of who our members will be in 40 years' time, some of them are not yet born, but some of our younger ones, we can certainly do some more polling there. But yeah, I think that's a really important question, Russell, which is how do we bring the younger people on with the journey so that they can feel like they connect and belong, because they are the future of this institute. Just not landing on the right slide. Gross.
It is a really good question. I mean, I think some of the universities and technical institutes are struggling to maintain a relationship with their students and with online learning, and I guess information being available on screens, and then the whole dynamic around that stuff's changing. So it is a really good point to understand what our form and interactions might be like in 40 years' time with our members.
I guess on that also, the phone, having the internet in your pocket. This is a conversation I just had recently with the CEO of Master Builders, Ankit Sharma. He said phones and the internet are really taking the place of connection that institutes and associations have held for the last few decades. So it's a really pivotal time for us all to rethink what it is we're offering our members, if it's not just connection, because you can get that on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So what is it that we're really offering? And the things that have landed for us are in that connecting, belonging, and giving back space. Connecting in real life events, the site visits, all the things that Mana was talking about before. That's the things that the Institute has really delivered very successfully in the past. And that's an area that we can really push and own as a deliverable going forward. And in order to try and get some of the younger people involved off their phones and out to site, we have instigated something around giving away PPE, site vests and hard hats. So that's something we started this year, 2024, and we're hoping to be able to do it every year. It's the kind of thing that needs a bit of sponsorship wrapped around it. So that's sitting in my space. But we think that if you can give away site gear and get young folks to sites, then you can get them connected to people, and then you start to get that real life connection. Also, the mentor mix, we've trialled that for the first time this year, and Jib is our partner for that, and that's been really successful. It's about mixing up the mentees with the mentors, and if anyone is interested to be either a mentor or a mentee, please get in touch with us and we can help that happen for next year, 2025. Have we got anything else Sophie, to check out.
Yes, John has a question. So I've just allowed him to talk.
G'day. Thanks. Look, I just want to be understand clearly where we're headed. Look, I support having a Te Reo name as part of the Institute. So I'm very clear on that. I think it's appropriate. But what I can't pick from what you've been saying is, are we going to have two names, or are we going to have a name such as something NZIOB or NZIOB something, which is, to be honest, one of those ways is the way I would see it, so that we don't have sort of two different things. Can you clarify that for me, please?
There'll be a hierarchy, John, of the names, and there'll be the right way to use them in the right situation. We don't have all the answers for that right now. We've literally brought you along on the journey of where we are to date.
Yep.
But we absolutely hear what you're saying, and that needs to be part of the next stage as that develops. I'd love
so
to.
There's no sort of names being looked at, because one of the things I did was get into the dictionary and look, I'm not going to share it today, but look at Te Reo equivalents around what we are, and looking at names like that you could add to or precede NZIOB. But you obviously haven't quite got there yet, and you're still consulting. Is that correct?
Well, there's a couple of aspects to that. One is we have been getting there for 18 months. We're considering names and what distills what the Institute's all about into a single word or a mashup word or an acronym word. And then we have decided to expand into the narrative, the pūrākau, what's the story, what's something that really speaks to why we're all part of the Institute. And we've landed in that space around growth. We don't have, we're not putting a word out today. We want to see if people are on board with where we've got to date. And then, of course, we're going to come back, once we've managed to get to the next step.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. We're not wanting to create more confusion, but we definitely are wanting to do an and. This is not an or conversation. Yeah. So New Zealand Institute of Building Incorporated, it stays. And then a brand that speaks to who we are, our narrative, our story, our pūrākau. I think Mana says all this stuff way more eloquently than I can, but hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of sense so far. Cool. Well, we've hit our 45 minutes. I just want to say thanks to everybody for your input. We are absolutely open to receiving information. If you want to email us, info@nziob.org.nz, and we'll share where we get to for the next step when we next meet again. The other thing that we're doing is we are popping around the country doing some member meetups. We're doing some conversations with our past presidents, and we're also doing some broader member meetups. And these conversations are more focused on the membership value, much like we did in October, November 2022. We're going to try and make this something that we do every 18 months, 2 years, and make sure that we are absolutely in touch with the value proposition that people are wanting, and what do you want the Institute to deliver for you. Given the current economic climate and the built environment, it's really important that we keep checking in with you and make sure that if there's something changing about what you need from the Institute, that we can respond and plan accordingly to deliver that. Cool. Kirsten or John or Mana, do you have any words you want to finish on?
Thanks, Pam. I mean, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending, and do fire in your questions if you've not taken yourself off mute or fired anything through so far. But it'd be great to have everyone aware of where we're at and on board with where we're trying to go, and buying into it. So appreciate the comments we've had, and yeah, thanks everyone for coming along this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Ka kite anō.
Ake te.